All right, welcome back, folks. Great to be along with you. This is, of course, Stinchfield, the podcast, talking about the 3-year anniversary of Abbey. What a disaster scenario we had with Joe Biden making the decision to pull out of Afghanistan by hook or by crook. Kamala Harris right there with him in the room when they decided on this withdrawal that left 13 of our service members dead. And if you remember, Joe Biden said back a few months ago when he was still running for president that nobody died on his watch. No service members died on his watch. And I say on his watch, remember, maybe the moment Joe Biden's presidency turned for the worse was when he was looking at his watch, when those service members' bodies were coming back in a pine box from Afghanistan on the tarmac, and he's looking at his watch. Well, clearly they died because of him. This is members of, this is the mother and father of Marine Sergeant Darren Hoover, who was on Fox and Friends this weekend. And I thought it was really important to hear from the family members on the Real America's Voice show tonight, too, by the way. We're going to have a family member on. If all goes well, we're still working the details out. But I think it's important to tell this story on this 3-year anniversary, something Kamala Harris does not want to talk about. But Gold Star parents reflecting on Abbey. Listen.
This is 3 years now and acknowledged, hey, we messed this up. We acknowledge that the loss of your son is preventable. Has any of the people you mentioned at least acknowledged privately in any way in reaching out, hey, we acknowledge what happened?
Biden and Harris, no, of course they have not. They want this swept under the rug. They want us to go away. Unfortunately for them, we're not going away. We do know that, Millie has reached out to us, and we are in the talks with him to get more information and to see what more we can get from him. But as far as the Biden administration, no, they haven't, and they won't.
So Millie reached out, but that's after he was out. So he's after being in power. Sort of a convenient way to look at it. It's like, okay, I know we messed up. I can't say it when I'm in an official position, but now that I'm out, now that I'll reach out.
I think the important takeaway from this is that you have a commander-in-chief in Joe Biden, his first assistant in Kamala Harris, who have not reached out to these family members. They're not taking personal responsibility, Biden and Harris, for this disastrous withdrawal that they said was a logistical success, by the way. You had Afghanis hanging from a plane. I don't know how you consider that a logistical success. But it goes to the bigger picture of what kind of leadership is this? What does this say about how they lead and the lack of accountability when they mess something up? President Trump has always been there for veterans, for soldiers, for police officers, quite frankly, for anybody that puts a flag on their shoulder, because President Trump has great appreciation for these people. I don't think Joe Biden, I don't think Kamala Harris has any appreciation for the men and women who put a flag on their shoulder and go into harm's way for us, whether it's harm's way on U.S. soil or harm's way in a faraway desert someplace. And so this tells you a lot about how they lead or the lack of how they lead. No calls. Mark Milley, the guy who understands or tries to understand, quote, white rage, he only calls them after. To me, it makes me sick to my stomach that they do not get the respect that they deserve. These family members. We have family members still grieving. You heard them crying in the background as President Trump is laying that wreath down. So President Trump, of course, did the exact opposite of Kamala Harris. He released a statement today and said this.
This month marks the 3-year anniversary of the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Kamala and Crooked Joe's catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan has just been horrible for all of us. 3 years ago, Kamala and Biden's incompetence left 13 dead warriors, hundreds of civilians killed and grievously wounded, and $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment on the planet abandoned to the Taliban, right into the hands of the Taliban. It also left 45 incredible soldiers so badly wounded, the legs, the arms, the face, obliteration. As Vice President, Kamala bragged that she was the last person in the room. She was the tough one. She was the last person in the room during that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan decision. She repeatedly praised the decisions, and she said it led to a catastrophe, but it was worth it. The incompetence and weakness on display from the Biden-Harris administration was an insult to every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine who ever served in our U.S. military. As we mark this horrible occasion, we mourn with the families of the great American heroes who lost their lives 3 years ago.
You know, I think President Trump is spot on when he says this was really an insult. And it is. Your commander-in-chief is supposed to be there for you. He's supposed to be the guy or gal. If God forbid, we have Kamala Harris as president. I don't foresee that happening, but God forbid. Your commander-in-chief is supposed to have compassion. Is supposed to have support for the men and women you send into battle. And this battle in Afghanistan never actually needed to happen. And then to think 85, what was it, $1 billion worth of equipment falls into the hands of the Taliban. I mean, this is a tremendous amount of money, billions of dollars worth of equipment falling into the hands of the Taliban. They had a parade, by the way. Last week or the week before, they paraded U.S. military equipment as a victory, and it was a victory. It's one of the most embarrassing moments in United States history, and that was on Joe Biden's watch. And somehow they want to erase this from Kamala Harris. I'll let President Trump continue.
And we vow to never forget the supreme sacrifice they made for our country. America cannot afford 4 more years of Kamala Harris in the White House. She is a disaster. She's a radical Marxist. She destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed the state of California. Everything in her way she destroyed. She ran against crooked Joe Biden and she lost. She was the first one out of 22 people. She was the first one to quit. She never even in the primary made it to Iowa. And this.
So in many respects, it is offensive. And I don't understand why more Democrats aren't angry with that process. Because that process was not fair to the Democrat voters who voted for Joe Biden. I will argue that you had to be an idiot to vote for Joe Biden or vote in a Democrat primary with the way that the Democrats have been going and the radical philosophies they're pushing. But it's still an insult to them. It's a free country. You vote for whoever you want, but it's not a free country when you don't get to vote for your candidate. And that's what happened with Kamala Harris.